Hi, so in this video I'm going to take you through this scene that I created for Epic Games, Enterprise, with in relation to the webinar series that we've been doing online. So you might have seen this before, but if you haven't, I thought it would be a great example to just take you through this scene because it contains more or less all the things that we have been looking at in this module. So we've got our spotlights. There's an omni light, point light here in the lamp, and there's some spotlights here on the shelves and some area lights. So I'll take you through a little bit one by one, and we can see how all that comes together in practice. So first of all, we've got a great sort of light manager here, where you see that when I hide the lights, it actually turns them off. So that's really useful in a potential client or just design review or things like that, where we can just really play around with this. And so that's the advantage also of not necessarily having all the lighting baked in, because if I turn this light off, then there will be a trace left on the wall. So let's start with the general introduction of what we've got here, and then we'll just take them one by one. Okay, so I've got some spotlights here on the ceiling. These spotlights there's two different types. This one is not an IES. You can see that slot is empty here, and I was just wanting to use this. Actually, I'll go on this side. If that's the advantage of having if I just turn off my walls. There you go, I've just hidden that outer box, which allows us to look in, which is fantastic view, a kind of almost a perspective section. So these spotlights here were mainly aimed at the floor, so that I would get bounce light back up on my ceiling. This is what I was trying to achieve with that. So they were definitely put onto stationary, and here they're quite strong, you see. So if I just go into my post-process volume, we can just turn off completely the indirect lighting, which is fantastic as well. And we could see so I'm just going to turn all of this off as well, even the light there. So all we've got left is our self-illuminated little lampshade here, and our self-illuminated. We'll come to those in a second. So my ceiling lights are just lighting the floor and giving this this general kind of worktop down lighting, and I put them quite a high value here, and the attenuation, you'll see that the radius goes quite far down, so that's why they intersect, and we can't have too many stationary lights next to each other, and you'll get that red cross. So to be used sparingly. Okay, so moving on, we've got these spotlights on the wall, and these, so if I just turn these off for clarity, and these have got an AIS by all means, as you can see, and they are set on movable. So I can really play around with those, and they're really here for effect. They will reflect in you can see that they reflect in the wood texture and in the ceiling. So they're very they're very visible, the effect of the light. So that's what, and being close to the wall, it's always a good idea to have the IES pattern here on the wall. Okay, now for the shelf ones, I'm going to go a little bit closer, because here we have an issue which I discovered while playing with these, where the standard spotlight shadows are very harsh. So I played with my shadow resolution scale here to get this slightly softer look that I wanted for these shelf items. So maybe that's a bit too small, and then of course, as you can see, so when I put that down, I get my shadow bias problem. So here, and also the shadow bias is necessary if you've got the light leaking through these thin shelves. So this is a problem that is going to arise very often when we start to play with the shadows. I mean, here even this is all I've reset all the values, so this is the light as it sort of just comes in, and you can see that there's a light leak here because the thickness of this shelf is less than 0.5. I guess that's meant to be 0.5 as a centimeter, and that looks like more than a centimeter to me. But anyway, there's a light leak here, so to counteract this light leak, we would need to decrease the bias. All right, but if we want to soften our shadow as well, I'll decrease the resolution of the shadow, and then we'll it's a very fine fine setting, fine game to play between when we start having our self-shadowing problems and when the shadow bias or light leaking. So there's all these very little values will need to be tweaked. So same thing for the other ones. I can play a little bit here with this one. I didn't soften the shadow too much, but similar kind of thing. Okay, so now moving on, I will turn all these on, and then with my post-process, I can turn my indirect lighting back up. So here we see the effect of the spotlights lightening up the ceiling. And here I've got these two very bright, this is in fact the shader for these lights. So this is very simple, but you see that, so the light has got just a simple multiply in the, so this is the original material, so very simple. The color that's put into the diffuse and just copied over to emissive with a multiplier, which enables me to play with it here. Okay, so here I've put it on 50. It's illuminating. It's giving a lot of illumination here in the stairs, and it's giving us this really nice soft light. I really like working with this. Unfortunately, it takes a bit of time to render if you've got a large scene. And here, those little ones, I've got a different one, light sources here, where again it's set on 50 by coincidence, but the point here was to just get these to glow. Right, so here we've got in our post-process volume, we've got this bloom, which is just set on default by this opacity. It just works just fine. But if I turn it off, you see that there's no effect, and we've just got this really white spot. So if we've got the bloom here, and then maybe even just play with the threshold, we get these very strong glowing effect, and that's just control by playing with this. So if I've got these light sources here, and the power here is not illuminating anything, it's just creating the intensity of that glow. Okay, so I'll just put it back on 50 because that's what it was, and then I can just put these back on the default value because, to be honest, they work really well the way they are. So same thing with these shelves, although they weren't so much meant to be seen, they're kind of hidden, and we just see the wash of light down the back of the shelves. But they were created in 3ds Studio Max, modeled, and made sure that they weren't completely touching a coplanar with the bottom of the shelf, otherwise we'd see some flickering here. So I've just moved them down a fraction of a millimeter so that they wouldn't intersect, and of course they need to have the use emissive static lighting checked in the light mask settings of the mesh. Okay, so this is a very interesting little slider here where we can completely affect the intensity of our indirect lighting here. So that's great fun. Okay, and then we can go back and turn them on. Lastly, I'll just put the show this Omni. There's really nothing to it. Just as I said previously, I've just tweak the attenuation radius to kind of make that, if I leave it to default as 1000, it's really affecting a very large area of the scene, which is not really what we want with this kind of little point light here that's just lighting up this corner, giving a bit of a sense of place, a sense of focus for this light. Okay, and so if I just turn it all back on, what have we got? So we've got the shelf light, so I can just hide that, give us a bit more room. Shelf lights on, wall lights and ceiling lights, and the wall lights. There you go. So this is great fun to play with. Okay, so that's it for this scene, and I hope that was useful.